And good morning and welcome in. It is the WAV 97.9 WHAV FM. And we have Tom Bergeron here. Tom, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Do I talk into this thing?
Yes, you
Okay,
do.
good.
Yeah.
All right.
That
I'm a little
one.
rusty, you know.
I know. Yeah, you've had the summer off, right?
Yeah, I've had the spring and summer off.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's been great. So, but it's like riding a bicycle.
Yeah.
Being on the radio, right?
Oh,
You never
yeah.
lose that.
No, you never
skill
do.
set.
Yeah. Now, tell us about that. I'm curious because I've been watching. Well, I watched Dancing with the Stars for a long time. Well, ever since it came on the air. as a matter of fact.
2005.
Get out,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
And prior to that, it was America's Funniest Video.
Yeah, I did those two shows at the same time up until about 4 or 5 years ago. And then I decided after 15 years of watching people get hit in the crotch, it was time to move on. Pass the pinata stick to somebody else, and Alfonso Ribeiro's doing a great job.
Yeah, he's doing a fine job on that. Yeah, that's. Did you have to watch all those videos?
Only the ones that we were going to use on the show.
Okay.
There was a staff that would view all the videos that were submitted, which, God bless them. But I would, I would only see the ones that were going to be included in the show. They'd send me a DVD. Sometimes I'd be back east here, and before I would go into the studio and do the voiceovers. And my daughters, because I started doing that show in 2001, so my girls were like in grade and middle school at that point. So they love it when the DVD would show up and we'd sit around and make some popcorn and watch the videos. And I think my daughter Jess said, "This is my favorite part." I said, "But this is the part that I'm not involved in at all because I haven't even done the voiceover." She goes, "I know." So,
Yeah, kids
shows
say
you how
the darndest
starstruck.
things.
Yeah, how starstruck they are.
Wow. Now you've been around, gosh, a long time, and as the promo that we run here on WHAV, you came here in 1972, and look, it's still here.
Yeah. I was listening to you as I was driving in this morning, and when you accurately mentioned that I began my career at HAV in '72, my back went out a little bit. But yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. Back on the old House Street studios.
And you actually were taught by Edwin V. Johnson.
Yeah, Ed Johnson was my public speaking teacher. And I sought out his class because I knew he was a part-time news guy at HAV. So I thought, I got to get to know this guy. And we became dear friends. And he introduced me to the station manager at the time, eccentric but ultimately charming guy, Ed Setlin. He had sort of a paternal interest in me. We'd lock horns occasionally, but under all that, I think there was some real affection. And certainly he took me back several times after I'd run off with the theater group and run out of money and come back. Hey, can I get on the radio again? All right, come in. And yeah. So, but Ed was the one that got me the interview, and then to work alongside him, as I did on a number of occasions over the years, was a real treat.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, when you were growing up here in Haverhill, when did you decide you wanted to kind of get onto the radio side or the TV
I think
side?
from the moment I could speak, and television was actually a happy accident, as Bob Ross used to say, but. It was always radio. I was fascinated with radio and would listen to like Larry Glick and Maynard and D'Souza at BZ, where I ended up ultimately.
Yeah.
And so TV happened as a result of radio, but it was always radio that was my first love.
How about that? I grew up in Concord, Mass, and I knew where Carl D'Souza actually lived.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I have a photo that I love of during the period that Dave was leaving the morning show on BZ and I was going to take over. There's a picture of the three of us, D'Souza, Dave, and me.
Oh, wow.
And I love that. I love that shot because they're sadly both gone now.
Yeah. Hey, look, here's a stray soul over here.
Tim, how are you, buddy?
Nice to see you,
That's
Tom.
right. The big boss just strolled in.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's on their best behavior now.
Well, I was listening to the antics. You guys are
Oh,
okay.
good. Are these antics? Have we actually devolved into antics at this
Not
point?
yet, but we're getting
All right, we're antic adjacent.
Yeah.
By the way, just finally found your personnel file.
Oh,
Do you remember that metal time clock in the back of the studio?
yes, I do.
You didn't punch in on June 23rd, 1976.
Well, I was gone by then, wasn't I? No, I was. Well, Ralph Hall was supposed to punch in for me.
Oh, well.
Yeah,
So we're going to have to dock $2.83.
That was a week's salary back then. There was actually
back in with.
what Tim's referring to, and this was one of the funnier aspects of what HAV was like when I was there. You had to punch in. And I said to Ed Setlin at one point, who was the owner of the station then, I said, isn't it obvious if I'm here or not here just by listening to the radio? I mean, you got to punch in. All right, whatever. So that was, yeah.
It was a very loud machine.
It was a very loud machine. And I also noticed you have a UPI teletype machine.
Well,
in
actually,
there.
that's a real reason we wanted you here. We
Yeah.
don't know how to change the ribbon.
Yeah, neither do I anymore. Neither do I. I do remember that feeling of the ink on on a Saturday morning when I was doing the AM and FM shift, and by myself, the only person in the building,
Oh, yeah.
running 2 radio stations, and having to change the ribbon on the old teletype thing, getting the ink all. It was hell.
Now, did you ever come in and find the paper out?
Oh yeah,
all
or
wrapped up?
jammed. It jammed, and it was just all the news was in one inky line. That was it. You couldn't read anything. Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Is that
why
how
you,
you learned ad-libbing?
Yeah, out of necessity.
Yeah.
Out of necessity.
Now, did you have you done the like the little comedy circuit and stuff like that, where you learned how to ad lib, or did you do that on the radio?
No, I was never really a stand-up. Although I dabbled in it a couple times, I just didn't have the stomach for trying to make a room full of drunks laugh at 2 a.m. I really think radio was that and doing some theater work were my key training grounds for. Just kind of being loose and ad-libbing. I mean, when you're on the radio, and especially when you're the only person running everything, stuff goes wrong sometimes, and you've got to be able to roll with it and hopefully, have some fun in the midst of it.
Well, you rolled with it. I remember the show that Marie Osmond went down.
Yeah,
to the
she
count.
she fainted. Yeah, that's one of the joys of live television. You really never know what's going to happen, and that was in one of our earlier seasons. And she had done a samba, and she was, I think her blood sugar had dropped, and so did she. The nice thing about that, though, is you can throw to a commercial. You know what I mean? In life, if something goes wrong, you can't say, we'll be right back after this while I figure this out. In television, you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you have such good timing too. After these celebrities have done their dancing, and
Yeah.
they're all winded. You know how to play with them. And
Yeah, well,
that's
and
great.
in that event too, for the couples, I try to be a bit of a shield for them between the judges, especially if the judges in the early going can be pretty honest with them and hard on them. But yeah, I'll make fun of everything else on the show, the spray tanning and the kitschy trophy and the sillier aspects, but I try to be very protective about the effort that the couples put forth.
They do spray tan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the one thing I haven't done. I've decided to be the pasty old white guy in the midst of all that.
Well, you do a great job with
Thank
it.
you.
You really do.
Thank you.
And I'm just amazed, just because I've been able to follow you through the years, from a distance and see what
Well,
you're
the
what you're up
restraining
to.
order is,
Yeah.
what keeps you
That will
100
expire
yards away.
eventually.
This is actually, we're making an exception for this interview.
Now, when you got the TV job, how did that happen?
Which
did
one?
you knock from Portsmouth into
Oh,
Boston?
no. I was doing a nightly radio show in Portsmouth on WHEB FM, and that was being listened to by a producer over at New Hampshire Public Television. and I was invited to host a magazine show that was going to premiere called New Hampshire Crossroads. But the Boston stuff also happened as a result of that radio show. It had nothing to do with the other TV work I was doing regionally. People who worked in Boston TV were listening to this radio show that I did at night, which incorporated a lot of improv comedy and live guests. Musicians would come in and perform live. I'd call all over the world if a crazy news story caught my fancy. I remember one time the general manager of that station calling me into his office and saying, your long-distance phone bills for the night show, they're getting up there. It's outpacing the ad revenue, actually. So if you find a funny story that takes place in Beijing or in Concord, New Hampshire, could you pick the Concord, New Hampshire one every so often? But he was very supportive at the same time. Cliff Taylor.
That's fantastic. And then from the Boston, that's where you got the connections with the networks.
Yeah, the stuff I did at BZTV led to an offer to host a morning show when FX launched back in '94. Oh. So I was co-host of still my favorite experience in television, Breakfast Time on FX cable. You can still see on YouTube there are videos of like compilation videos of what we did on that show.
How about that?
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to Dancing with the Stars.
By the way, this is a morning show, so I feel obliged to say we're coming up to 7:22 on WHAV.
And what's the temperature?
I don't know. That's your job.
69 degrees. Yeah, I'm the weather guy. They haven't tried to get you to dance yet, though, have they?
I danced once.
Really?
Season 2. That also, sadly, is available on YouTube. It was a quick step. I wanted to know what it felt like. I wanted to know what they went through. And while you can intellectually know that, I wanted to feel in every fiber of my being. And training for a dance and then doing it on the show live was actually helped my hosting. It really, I gained a new level of empathy for all of them.
Yeah, so you don't go to any of those training sessions.
No.
You
Hosting,
just show up, right?
Let me tell you, just between you and me, cushiest gig on the show is hosting it. I don't have to train. I don't have to show up during the week. I show up on Monday. I ad lib. They got the check. I say thank you very much, and I go home.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
They don't have direct deposit?
Yeah, they do actually.
That's a good thing. About this, that's fantastic. Now the new season, that's going to be starting up soon.
Yeah, September 16th, Monday night, September 16th, and we'll be live for 11 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of tension when they start, when you have to say, so-and-so, you're done?
Not for me.
No.
You know, that's how it works. You know, I mean, it's, some people it's harder to say goodbye to than others, but by the same token, that's the nature of the show is having to say goodbye to somebody every week. Yeah, it's always interesting to see what kind of chemistry will emerge or not emerge among a given cast. So we'll be letting you know who the people are in a few weeks, and you can judge for yourself starting September 16th.
It seems to be like every season there's a one or two couples that really like each other.
Yes, that's a euphemism, right? You're very nicely played. Yeah. Sometimes more than others. Sometimes they don't like each other too, which can also be interesting.
That does show.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, that's. I was just thinking about the entire show, and one of the other things that you have done that people may not have realized is you've written a book.
Oh, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's holding up some of the finest windows in America right now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Hosting just as fast as I can.
That's right. Yeah. It was really designed as a covert book about meditation, about ways to train your mind to be present and in the now of your life, kind of. But I use a lot of career anecdotes to kind of string you along. while I'm
Okay.
teaching about meditation.
And the meditation's been a very important part for you.
Yeah, I did it this morning, as a matter of fact. I've been doing it for, over 35 years, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
I used to meditate at HAV. There was a room downstairs in the old building on House Street where Ed Sutton used to keep his ties. Not his own personal ties, but he used to sell ties on the side because, you never know when the radio business is going to crater. So I'd go down near there and meditate and then go back on the air.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of each Dancing with the Stars season, you have to, as you mentioned, you have to make the rounds and really pre-sell the show again.
Yeah, especially given this season that we've been off for the better part of a year. I mean, we wrapped the last season at the end of November of 2018, so we've been off since then. So we're going to test the theory that absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Any new twists for the show this year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you about them right now.
I respect that.
Yeah. But yes, there are some tweaks and changes that I think will be responsive to some fans' concerns about how voting worked, where the judges can hold sway, etc.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It does get kind of complicated, doesn't it?
Well, it hasn't been really. It's been a 50-50 split in the past. What got complicated was the perception that created unfairness, that the results of some competitions, I'm being as diplomatic as possible,
Sure.
led some people to believe that we had to reassess the weight of the judges versus the viewers,
Oh, okay.
to give them a little bit more sway because they're the dancing experts,
Yeah. Now, I can't imagine. Did Len used to be a dancer?
Oh yeah,
Really?
very much so. Yeah,
Okay.
he competed professionally, and you can see Bruno in an Elton John video, and Carrie Ann was a fly girl in Living Color. So yeah, Len is the one with the real ballroom experience. But yeah, all three of them have dance backgrounds.
And what happens to where do the dancers go that were on the show and then have gone from the show?
They're cryogenically frozen, and the hope is at some future date we can thaw them and bring them back,
Oh,
and
wow.
not
Along
a
with-
day will have passed in their awareness.
Along with Ted Williams, right?
Yeah, and Walt Disney. Yeah.
Yeah, because some of these dancers are.
By the way, it's 7:29 on WHAV. I just feel like he should be doing more time checks, don't you?
well,
Trying
we
to get
should.
ready for work.
Yeah, we should. 7:29.
I already did 7:29.
I'm glad
you
you
gotta do another
mentioned
one.
that. Well, okay, I'll do 7:30. How's that?
There you go.
But yeah, we should do the news. And,
Yeah, why?
you
Yes,
got
yes.
some
I feel
things
like
to do.
This is like I'm taking you away from your prime responsibilities here.
That's okay.
All right.
I've practiced my Zen.
Good.
I know where I am. But yeah, why don't you? We have some things for you to do.
Oh, really?
While you're
Some
here.
just cleaning and stuff,
Yeah.
or just.
Yeah, and the trash is right out there.
All right, I'll take care of it.
But let me do the news, and then we'll
Yeah.
come back and resume. How's
All
that?
right.
We'll
This
be
is,
back after this.
We
can do
it's
that.
a cliffhanger interview.
That's right. All right, hey, we're talking with Tom Bergeron, but you knew that already. And Tom's going to be back after we catch up with the news coming along in just a couple of minutes here on the Wave 97.9 WHAV FM.
Win for breakfast.
Oh my coffee.
Oh, that.
There we go.
Oh, sorry. No, we can put that on
Could we
there.
repeat that? We have Tom Bergeron with us, Haverhill kid who started here at WHAV.
That's right. Sorry, we're disrupting your
well.
usual morning show.
Well, that's okay. But so you're on stage.
Well, Tim,
Well, this is the segment of the show, Tom's most embarrassing moment.
it wasn't my most embarrassing moment. I was completely comfortable with it. Apparently, some of the nuns weren't. We did a show in the 8th grade at what was then St. Joseph's School. It became, I think, did it become All Saints School? Or it was always St. Joseph's School, and now it's basically for sale, right? Now you can by a big building where there used to be nuns and me. But in any case, so there was this show, Laugh-In was very big at the time. Shows you how far back this goes. And so we put on a show called The Spring Ding-a-Ling, which I don't know where the hell we got that title, but it was basically Laugh-In on stage, done by kids in the 8th grade. And there was one, and Fran Barabee, who runs the Barabee Funeral Home now, had his first taste of death on stage with me. And so Fran was like, we were like the Rowan and Martin for that 8th grade production. And there was one moment where I ran out on stage pretending to be late, still zipping up my fly. And apparently some of the nuns were embarrassed at that. I was fine with it. It got a good laugh, by the way.
So that's where you went to school?
Yeah, grade school, yeah. 8
Okay.
years, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
8 years?
Yeah.
Isn't it 4-year school?
No, St. Joseph's at that. No, that was Haverhill High. I went 8 years. It was a 4-year school.
Oh. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about your time here at HAV. We just played Manfred Mann. Was that one of the songs you played?
Oh, I'm sure. Well, because I started at HAV part-time when I was still a senior in high school. And then did the morning show for a number of years. Was there. It was interesting, too, because I would do the morning show from, how long is your shift?
3 hours.
You're well, that's easy nowadays. Back when I was doing the morning show, you had to work. I was on from 6 to noon.
Oh.
Then I would have a lunch hour, and then I would come back from 1 to 2. But I thought it was ridiculous that one person was on for 7 hours. So from 1 to 2, I wasn't Tom Bergeron. I was Dustin Hanna, a flip on Hannah Dustin, for you local Haverhill historian buffs. So I was Dustin Hanna, same voice, same delivery, everything, just different name. one of the worst examples of trying to hide out in plain sight.
That's like, coming up with radio names like Sandy Beach.
Sandy Beach, yeah.
Just in Time.
Just in Time. There are a few others we probably shouldn't talk about. But yeah, that basic idea.
Yeah. So when you were doing the morning show, were you like it? Did you were you the news guy too?
No. Ralph Hall was my regular newsman. When he'd be on vacation, that's when I'd get to work with Ed Johnson. He would fill in, like over the summer and stuff. But no, Ralph and I did the show together. And I was mentioning, I did an interview with Maria Stefanos of WCVB recently, and I was telling her that Ralph and I used to do the birth reports at like 9:05, and we would start it by sound of a slap and then a baby crying, and then I would give the birth report. And I said to Ralph, for the obits, we should have beep, 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 and then I should start. And he said, "Nah, that might be a step too far."
Maybe you can tell the audience about the time you raised the workers' compensation premiums at the station, changing a tape reel during the open mic show.
One of the worst open mic shows ever. And the open mic show now has a history of, 40 plus years or something, right? Yeah. Of those 40 plus years, the worst night when Bill Pike was the host was when I was his engineer. And to get the delay, because it was like a 6-second to 9-second delay, you had 2 reel-to-reel machines, so that basically Bill's doing his show, it's recording to the top reel. By the time the tape gets down to the bottom reel, you have what goes over the air, and you've got that 9-second delay. Sounds simple until you ask me to do it. I actually screwed up so bad, I bloodied my hands trying to fix the tape. And then ultimately, Bill was taking calls live, but he couldn't put the caller on the air in case they went rogue. So he was just listening to what they had to ask, repeating it into the microphone and answering it. And I remember Ed Setlin saying to me the next day, "Tommy, that was the worst thing I've ever heard in radio.
I was hoping we'd get
Yeah.
the set one.
Yeah. It was bad. It was sad.
So you don't dream about Ed Sutherland, do you?
He was, I got to say, he was very good to me in that he gave me a shot. He took me back several times, as I mentioned earlier, when I'd go off and work with a theater company and run out of money. And so we had ultimately, I think he took a paternal interest in me of a kind, and I owe him a great debt.
Oh, that's fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah, tell me a little. You mentioned the theater company a couple of times. So tell me a little bit.
Yeah, I went off to South Paris, Maine, to work and study with Tony Montanaro, who was just a brilliant teacher and performer, and helped me. When I say that one of my best broadcasting teachers was a mime, I'm not kidding. He really taught me how to be present on stage, something which doing the radio show also was helping with. I mean, that ad-lib need of a live broadcast, but also when you're on stage in front of a live audience, and we're doing sketch comedy and things like that, we could play around. Some of the pieces I would do by myself, others I would do with the troupe, and Tony was just a wonderful, gifted teacher. But it wasn't, it wasn't a big income generating situation. So I'd make enough money, go study with him for some time, and then come back and beg Ed Sutherland to take me in.
Do you have any of those mime routines that you could do now?
Yeah, because there's nothing better than radio mime. Here you go. This is the illusionary wall. There you go. Right? Huh? Isn't this fascinating? By the way, it's 9 minutes before 8 o'clock at WHAV.
No.
Time flies when you're miming on the radio.
Well, actually, you did that very well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I know what I'm doing here.
Now, when you first knocked on the door here at WHAV, it was downtown, and you had a lot of surrounding businesses around there too, right?
As a matter of fact, my paternal grandfather worked right down the street at what was then Atherton's Furniture, right down the street from the House Street Studios that used to house HAV. And it was great because I'd get out from my shift, and quite often he'd be at the front door kind of waving to me. He'd been listening to it. He listened to and taped the first radio show I ever did on HAV, which was a Saturday night rock show when I was a senior in high school. And how to put it, it sucked. I was just such a nervous wreck, and he taped it all, and I thought, oh, are you going to use that against me later? He was just being the proud, grandfather, always very supportive.
Were you able to hang on to that piece of sound?
It might be somewhere, but
YouTube?
No. But I do mention it to like students and such, because don't beat yourself up if it's tough to start, to find your own voice, to get over the nerves and all that. I mean, we all have done it, and that first night, my heart was beating like a jackhammer.
Oh yeah.
It took a long time to get to a point where I just felt completely comfortable.
Oh yeah. I remember my first job. I flipped all the call letters around.
There you go. Yeah.
First time I opened up the mic, and the guy, of course, the general manager was right behind me, and so he leaned right over and did the right thing. But,
welcome to Dyslexia Daytime.
Yeah, it happens.
It does.
Yeah. Now, did you work on your voice when you were in high school?
No, not really. I think it was osmosis. I mean, I think to some degree this is the voice I got. But I hear early recordings that my dad did of me and my sister, and I can hear the New England accent, the Boston accent. And I think that disappeared just by virtue of me listening to the radio guys that I admired, and without even realizing I was doing it, kind of shifting my approach to be a little less regional.
Now, when you were growing up, which radio guys were you listening to?
It was the BZ group. It was Juicy Brucey Bradley, Larry Glick, Jerry Williams at night as well, Maynard, Dick Summer.
Oh, yeah.
Remember Dick Summer, the Love and Touch?
Oh, yeah.
Dick Summer here. Overnight, WBZ.
And he had that kind of, like Gene Shepard had that kind of voice too.
Gene Shepard,
Who did A Christmas Story, the movie A Christmas Story. He's the narrator too.
and he had the kind of voice that even if he was saying absolutely nothing of interest, you kind of thought something interesting was going to happen.
You know what I mean? He would lure you in with that voice because it was just so, he was so immersed in it
Yeah.
that it sounded like something good's got to happen here.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I used to listen to Gene Shepard. He was on New York radio.
Yeah,
at the time.
WOR, right?
Yeah, and I could pick it up and
Same here.
on the transistor
Yeah,
radio.
that's absolutely how I would listen to it. Yeah, under the covers at night when I was supposed to be asleep.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, it's 5 minutes before 8.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because we have some things that we should do.
All right. Well, then
But are you going to stick around? Or you
I will have
off and
to
running?
off and run, but it's always a pleasure to be here, and thank you for letting me take up so much of your time.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank
and
you.
I'm so glad I had a chance to meet you after all these years.
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Take care.
All right, Tom, thank you very much. Tom Bergeron, alumni reunion, I guess, right? Reunion.
Yeah.
WHAV.
Yeah, Tim and I worked at the House Street location years ago.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Uh,
How come your hair is still brown and mine's all white?
A secret.
Okay.
Now, you wanted to take that microphone home?
I do. I would love to take this. This is an actual old-style radio microphone that you can see on the website if you go to the hav.net website. That says WHAV, and it's a great microphone. Yeah.
It is, yeah. All right, well, go ahead and take
No,
it.
I'll find out from Tim where I can order one for myself. I don't want to start ripping off equipment. That's just a bad thing. I used to do that in the old days. Yeah. They haven't gone to my storage locker yet. I don't want to encourage them.
All right, well, Tom, thank you
A
again.
pleasure.
You're welcome
A pleasure.
anytime you're in town.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Tom Bergeron, our guest this morning here on the WAVE 97.9 WHAV FM. Oh, by the way, it's 7:56.